Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 3 of the Jarrod Thomas Show podcast. This time, County Commissioner Mark Rustad is joining us. Hello, Mark.
Hey, Jarrod. Nice to be here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you accepting the invite and coming on out, and lots of things going on in the county, so it makes it timely. Should make it
You can say that again, buddy.
Should make a spirited visit for the two of us. Bob Rost, in the interest of full disclosure, was invited but predisposed, had a commitment that he couldn't get past.
Yep, he's babysitting his grandkids. So.
Which we completely understand.
Yep.
We'll get to him, though, in just a little bit. I do have a question or two about that, especially from a county standpoint. In fact, we could just go ahead and start there. So Mr. Rost made the announcement that because, I guess for lack of a better term, a conflict between his role as an elected official and a pension that he earned after 40 years of service, 32 of those years, or 8 of those years rather, as a sheriff, his pension amount. Now, I did a little math, and I discourage math on the air, but I did this math off the air.
Oh, so then it should be good.
Well, again, I don't know if it's going to be good, but it should illustrate the point. It was kind of, that's why I do math. Please don't ever like check it per se.
Okay.
But I took some rough figures from the Herald. Had KNOX Radio had a story on it, but the Herald had a little bit more in-depth story on it. And I was reading the story in the Herald in preparation with the laser focus that it takes to put a podcast like this together
which is
each
incredible.
week. Thank you. So I appreciate that. There's some math in there that I think is of interest, and we'll get to that in just a second. So just to catch you up, if you've been living under a rock, Mr. Rost will leave the commission 4:30. He's doing so because the IRS has said, hey, you can't collect a pension from a county, but then also serve in that county in an elected position.
That's not quite right. So he could remain, but his pension would be frozen.
Sure.
So basically, what we're left with is if people that have worked for a county have an incredible amount of tribal knowledge in said county, decide that in their retirement that serving that county and putting that knowledge to work would be a good way to use their time. That's no longer acceptable, apparently, unless they can live off of the whopping $22,000 a year or whatever it is, something in that range salary that the county commissioners get as a stipend.
Right. So, again, the published amount was $22,078.20, which I'm sure you as a commissioner, I'm sure you count on every nickel.
Yeah.
Every nickel, I'm sure you're like, we get paid, babe. Oh, okay. This was the quote. Again, I'm going to take the Herald that they got this right. So we'll just start there.
It sounds right.
Okay, so I wrote this down. Rost is quoted as saying, I think the IRS looks at the fact that all that money is tax-free in your entire pension. Now you're a county commissioner, and you're putting tax-free money back in. So you actually have tax-free money on both ends. Huh?
I suppose that could be the case. I thought it had more to do with preventing like what you would call like double dipping.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I'll just make up a fake scenario, and I'm not even going to use his name because I don't want anybody to listen to 4 minutes of this and then think that this is what happened. So let's say John Smith serves 35 years in the sheriff's department, earns a pension, puts the money away, does their thing, retires, and then because, they're probably well aware of the next sheriff, could be a friend of theirs, then they get a cushy job, in the office and administration or whatever for, another $85,000 a year or whatever, right? So that you can't collect your pension and then also receive a full big boy salary and benefits, et cetera, et cetera. That to me actually makes some sense. Now, in this situation, they're looking at his $22,800 whatever it is dollar stipend as a salary, which to me is so misguided. Because first of all, he wasn't given this position by anybody.
Right.
He earned it. He was elected, overwhelmingly so, by the voters in Grand Forks County, and he deserves to be sitting there. And the $22,000 is not a living wage. Even anybody in the IRS ought to know that.
Sure. So the part that caught my attention, though, was, so it's tax-free in, it's tax-free out. It's a hell of a pension, regardless of if it's a county commission salary or if it's a pension earned throughout the course of the county. So that's a hell of a benefit. But this is where the story and again, where I start doing some math. In the body of the story, there's a reference to Rost's, that's S apostrophe, his pension is about, and I believe that's the words exactly, about 3 times what his salary is.
I would assume so, yeah.
So that makes sense, right? I mean, a guy, 40 years, 8 years as a sheriff, it absolutely makes some sense. I mean, most people would think, yeah, okay, that's about right. Yep. Some might even think, that might be a little low.
Light, yeah.
Yeah, but okay. So I just took the numbers that I had, $22,078.20. Okay. So I just took 3 times. I didn't take about 3 times, just took 3 times. So his pension yearly, roughly, again, is about, now these are all very rough numbers, but I'm building to a bigger point, $66,234.60. Okay? So that, sure, again, makes perfect sense to most people. So what I thought was interesting is somewhere in there, I forget what his title is now because it feels like it changes all the time. Tom Ford, county administrator,
Literally calling me right now.
County dude, whatever, who apparently tries to herd cats as, I guess, his job primarily.
Lately it has been, yeah.
Makes a comment in the Pulitzer Prize winner that's something along the lines of, the county is unsure if it's going to have to pay back Bob's pension over these last, I presume to be, almost 7 years.
So what I've been told is that NDPERS, which is the company in charge of county pensions, and actually not just county pensions, but every basically municipality throughout the state, meaning schools, cities, et cetera, is wanting back from the county $17,000 roughly, and from Bob Rost personally, roughly $3,000.
Do you know off the top of your head how they arrived at those amounts?
Absolutely no idea.
Because again, back to my rough math. So he, again, you and I agree. This whole thing is a bit of a farce, what the IRS is doing here and all those things. But if you want to buy into the idea that Mr. Rost was double dipping, and again, neither one of us do, but if we just ran with what the IRS is alleging here, then for 6.5, almost 7 years, he collected a $66,000 a year pension plus $22,078.20 in pay for working on the commission. So if they say in the end, they move the goalpost, because that's what the IRS did. They did an audit, i.e. moved the goalpost to say, hold on, Rost is double dipping. If they came back and said, well, we think that, and that's why I come back to Ford's comment, was, well, hold on a second. If you take his $22,000 and subtract it from his pension amount that, again, I roughly did, that's $44,156.40. And if you take that by, I just used 6 years, the county or somebody would be writing a check to the IRS for $264,938.40. Ford also mentions that these dollars aren't budgeted. So then the county would have to come up with, now you've mentioned already, NDPERS is kind of saying, looks like it's going to be 17 and 3. Mm-hmm. That's a whole heck of a lot less than $264,938.40.
Yeah, to be honest, I do not know how they arrived at those numbers, and I hope none of them are listening to this podcast.
Well, I should say too, and for some clarity, they would likely be looking for, and I don't and again, I don't know. The IRS just seems to do whatever the hell the IRS does. Would they be looking for full repayment? Would they just be looking for taxes on that amount? But it's a bit of a, I don't want to call it a gift because, again, we both think he's getting the bad side of the deal here. But $17,000 from North Dakota PERS and then $3,000 from Rost, which I don't know. I don't know how I'd handle that if that was me personally.
I can tell you how I plan on it.
Well, I'd really struggle to pay it. I can tell you that. I'd be visiting with legal folks to try to figure out what the hell's going on here.
We have a 9 a.m. meeting. I plan to make a motion that the county makes him whole.
Oh.
I already checked with the state's attorney, and she said that is reasonable. There's a precedent for something along these lines and completely legal. So if it passes, then Commissioner Rost will be made whole because he did nothing wrong. NDPERS did something wrong, and now they're, in my opinion, shifting the blame to Commissioner Rost.
Well, I don't think that's disputable, right? I mean, anybody of logical thought could come to the same conclusion that you did. But I just thought that it's very interesting how the IRS or whoever does this audit, or NDPERS and the IRS, and they all get involved, and all of a sudden there's a big stink, and it does feel all of a sudden, doesn't it?
I'm assuming. I was thinking about this since we've been talking about it. I'm wondering if maybe they can only maybe go back so far, maybe to the last election, possibly. It could just be the taxes owed, or possibly it could be that the policy is relatively new, too. I mean, these are all questions. Answers will eventually come out of this because this is not just affecting Commissioner Rost. This is going to affect tons of local politicians throughout the entire state. You
know where my mind went immediately was Danny Weigel. He's a lieutenant with the University of North Dakota Police Department.
He's not collecting a retirement, though.
So, okay, but you can be an active employee, but then also have a side hustle, so to speak, in the county in which you serve.
So, well, I think Danny's employed by the state.
Sure.
Not Grand Forks City. So I think that might be also like a second degree of separation. I think Danny'd be clear here of any of this crap. But think of throughout the state how many school boards have retired teachers on them.
Oh, sure.
I bet you there is. I bet you can't even find a school board in the state of North Dakota without at least one retired teacher on them. And if they're retired and collecting a pension, they're going to have this exact same problem that Commissioner Rost is facing right now.
Yeah. What a mess.
Yeah, it's a joke.
And then there's the other side of it is you got to find somebody to replace him for what, a year and a half?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the reasons we're meeting tomorrow morning is to kind of establish how that's going to go down. So the rules on that, as I understand them, bear in mind I'm not a barrister, an attorney, anything of that nature. As I understand the rules,
barrister,
you like that?
That was good.
Yeah,
that was good.
So if the four of us, Commissioner Peach, Commissioner Hagen, Commissioner Bierke, and myself, can agree in a majority on an individual, then it's done. Then we seat that person. Should we be at a impasse, like for instance, like a 2-2 impasse, Haley Wamstead, the elected state's attorney, would be the tie-breaking vote. If for some reason she's not available or not there, Sheriff Andrew Schneider would be the tie-breaking vote as also an elected official. Now, we're not obligated to do this, but it sounds as though, and I actually said this on your radio airwaves earlier today, it sounds as though how we're going to handle it is tomorrow at the meeting, we're going to tell Tom Ford basically to, at least this is what I prefer. I shouldn't say we're going to. That's
sure.
Sure. Sometimes I struggle with that because I have something in my mind and I think this is how it should go down. But it's easy to forget that other people have to agree, and so. But
right.
But the way I think it's going to go down is that we will have Tom put an article or ad in the paper for like a week or something, asking for applications for county commissioner, and then leading up to our next meeting, which is on the 6th of May. Prior to that meeting, we will interview, one at a time, the applicants. I mean, if we get 30, 40 applicants, it could be a long day for everybody. If we get 5 or 6, it might just take an hour or so. And then we'll seat that person, hopefully, in my mind's eye, that day. That way we're not, because we're smack dab in the middle of budgeting and we're trying to right the ship financially. We can't have just 4.
Yeah. Okay. So the Rost thing is, there's a little bit of to be determined there. Bob, a longtime public servant, whether you want to pick on his time in law enforcement or you want to pick on his time as a commissioner, he certainly was a guy that, I mean, he loves this community, he loves this county, he loves this place.
This community and county love him back.
Right.
I mean, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yep.
I mean, I was running in the same election against him. He kicked my hind end.
Yeah.
And everybody else's.
Yeah.
You know, so
he's very popular.
Yeah, he's, and should be. I mean,
absolutely.
You got a beloved community member, a great family man, raised 3 great kids, now a bunch of great grandkids. Look how he spends his free time walking kids across the street at Kelly Elementary School.
It's still crazy to me.
You know, and
it really is.
Helping prepare meals at the Senior Citizen Center. Yeah. The guy's a community stalwart. Yeah. And so this happening to him, even though we don't agree on a whole lot when it comes to county commission, I mean, we've had practically shouting matches, but this is just not just.
Yeah. No, it is. It's hard to point to another example of a guy that's just outwardly and in the public view getting screwed. Really is. To this level. It's really hard to just go, wow, there's not a lot of places. And the part that's hardest is there's not a lot of arrows in the quiver to fight back with.
I don't think there's any.
Well, that's what I mean. I mean, it's like, so what do? You can either freeze your pension or quit.
Mm-hmm.
You have until Tuesday.
Yeah, and he's going to quit.
Well, I mean, to his point, he can't live on $22,078.20.
He's got to pay his bills.
Unless you guys were to give him a huge, huge raise.
You know what? Run that by Bierke.
Yeah, I'm sure. But which segues beautifully into my next topic here for you, which is budget cuts. Again, I was reading, and it looks like across really everywhere, it's 1% to 3%. How'd you arrive there?
Well, Terry came up with a plan that he thought would be functional, and he kind of laid it out. He gave us all a document. When I say Terry, I mean Commissioner Terry Bierke.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of absorbed it over the course of 2 weeks. And then the next meeting, which would have been 8 days ago, we discussed it openly. Chairwoman Kimberly Hagan asked that we kind of make it a more uniform 1% to 3% and have the department heads come back to the county with their ability to cut and trim, because it's become very obvious to us that there are some departments where this is probably going to be easy. If not, they could do more. And some departments where even the 1% is a bit of a stretch, because we're talking about just dumping people at that point. So, and we're all trying to avoid that. We've had, I think, either 3 or 4 people quit and 1 termination, and those positions are not being put back in. So we've already realized some of these savings. So you won't see those positions on next year's budget, which is good. And we're getting, about a half year worth out of this year's budget. So we'll have a little bit of cash from those positions. Call it, I don't know, ballpark it at $300,000. You don't like the math on the fly, but call it $300,000. We can roll over into next year or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. So again, the dumbest question you'll likely get all day is,
you know how old my kids are?
is obviously then the commission thought that the county was running heavy.
The commission knew that the county was running heavy.
Okay. So some of the departments that are to be affected would be the public library.
Correct.
Safe Kids.
Possibly.
NDSU Extension are all looking at cuts.
Yes.
So what happens to those programs then if their funding is taken away?
Well, I'm hoping we can find what I would call an acceptable haircut.
Mm.
Would be my goal. I'm not interested necessarily, except for the Historical Society. They can kick rocks. But other than that,
I'm with you there, brother.
Other than that, I'm not interested in eliminating things. I'll just use Safe Kids as an example. I think we can trim a little off of there, but for when they, for anybody that didn't watch the meeting, which is mostly everybody, they this is going to get a lot more views. So for instance, if there's a family with a really terrible condition that they're living in or whatever, and somebody has to be in emergency foster care, Safe Kids shows up, and they take care of, for instance, safe travel. They provide the car seat. They make sure that it's installed correctly, things like that. Because the last thing you want to do as a county is be a part of a situation that pulls a child from what they deem to be an unsafe home or a living environment, and then put them in a car and then have them wreck and then get them killed, hurt or killed or whatever, you know.
Yep.
And so they provide a pretty valuable, and it's not a big budget item either. Their line item is, I think, $25,000. So, I mean, but like everybody else, EDC, everyone's going to get a bit of a haircut from the county. And also these places do have other funding sources, right? They're an arm of Altru. And so they've got funding through there. I do believe the city participates. And it's not something that anybody wants to do. It's just something that we have to do. If we don't, we're going to go bankrupt by 2030.
Do you hope to leave it at programs?
No, it'd be all departments, programs, everything.
Right. Okay. So, but you're trying to stay away from people as best you can.
Absolutely. Unequivocally. I don't want to terminate anybody that hasn't given us a reason.
Sure.
And as a matter of fact, I'm really struggling with the fact that there's a possibility we can't give what they're used to getting for cost of living and raises for this financial situation that we found ourselves in. I'm really hoping we can find a way to continue that, because I do believe the most important, and I think everybody believes this. This isn't like some novel thing I came up with. I'm not some genius. Okay, guess what? Guess what I figured out? People are very important to organizations.
Yeah, you
mark the tape.
You.
Yeah. But it is. But there's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of people that work in certain different capacities throughout the county that are doing a kick-ass stand-up job that I'd be sick to my stomach if we can't give them their due, because we all know inflation's still going on.
Sure.
And to give them nothing is essentially decreasing. You could look at it that way, right?
Well, you could. I think part of what you struggle with, whether you're in private business, public business, or business, any kind of business really, is that the inflation number has been so big that businesses just can't keep up. If the cost of goods moves 10%, my 3% raise helps, but it doesn't cover it, right? And so I hope employees know, and certainly employees of the county would know, that you guys are doing the very best that you can through this tough time. Does this right size it?
I do believe we can. I think we've got the right people in the right positions right now. I will say I kind of wish the tax and finance director had waited on her resignation. The timeliness of that, not awesome. But you know what? She's put in her time. She's entitled to resign when she wants to resign, and she has agreed to help out afterwards. I should add this. This will be breaking news. I have been in touch with Michael Howe. I talked to him at length on Saturday, and that would be our Secretary of State in North Dakota. And he said that Grand Forks will receive all the resources necessary for this transition from Debbie Nelson, who's tried and true and has just done an outstanding job for all amazing. These years. And she runs about as tight of an election as any place in the country, and I don't think anybody would debate that. She's done just such an outstanding job. And so they are willing, and they know that. Michael Howe and his office, and they understand that Debbie's shoes are like Shaquille O'Neal's, and so just to slap somebody in there is gonna be a transition. So you can expect, specifically when the next election comes down, and then even throughout this budget season, there will be a cavalcade of people from the state coming to assist Grand Forks. He gave me his word. I trust the man. He's a nice guy. He understands,
Sure.
and he knows how important that Grand Forks County's functioning and our election's sanctity is to the state. And so it'll be nice to have that additional assistance for this time.
The cuts would result about $900 in general fund, and then between $140,000 and $400,000 from other funds that are levied separately. So it's about an equivalent of 2 to 4 mils, depending on where all this lands. Yeah,
$900 in
$900,000 out of the general fund.
Yeah, if they all go through and they're all approved, yeah, I'd be around there.
So 2 to 4 mils when it's all said and done, depending on how this all plays out.
Well, and then there's the X factor too, right? Like, so if these don't all get approved, then we've got issues. Or I shouldn't say all approved, but if we can't get to a number that's like reasonable, we got some pretty serious issues. Because last budget season, part of the reason I voted no for it, we backfilled from 48 mils to about 58 with cash on hand.
Right.
And so that normally that isn't such a big deal. If you've got the cash, it's not bad to keep the taxpayers happy and keep the mills down, right? That sounds all great. But we also, kind of knew that this was a possibility coming down the road from the legislature. It doesn't sound like Kelly Armstrong is going to let these folks go home until he gets something property tax related on his desk for him to sign that he's satisfied with. He has told me to my face that he is not going to sign anything that doesn't have a 3% roughly cap on it. So that 3% cap, we aren't capped on what we spent last year, which was about 58 mils. We're capped on what we levied last year, which was about 48 mils. And so right off the top, we're about 8% heavy with only a 3% window. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, so you got to find 5% to get rid of in order if you want to balance the budget.
Yeah, which we're legally obligated to do.
Right. So, it's the other guy might just say, well, why don't you just raise taxes? You just answered that by saying
we're not allowed to.
Governor Armstrong's not going to allow you to.
No, we're not going to be allowed to raise taxes. I don't want to anyways. I wouldn't.
Well, I mean, everybody's philosophies aside, right? I mean, what the governor is saying is, it's not that's not a quiver. That's not an arrow in your quiver. No. You are you can do 3%, but that's going to be about it. The old axiom was anytime a government entity cut mills, they raise taxes, right? Because that would be the way that you would get around that would be, well, sure, we're going to go ahead and we'll cut your mills. Look at us, or we'll keep your mills. This was something not the current mayor, but a former mayor liked to do a lot. We'll hold you steady on the mills, but then we'll just go ahead and raise the taxes.
But your house went up in value by 13% in 1 year, magically. Yeah.
But that I mean, again, back to just our most recent conversation here, that can't happen here.
No, it cannot. This is a hard cap on levying. And so, like, for instance, if it passes in its current form, let's say the value of all of our houses do go up 10%. Guess what? We got to drop mills 7%.
Yeah. So I guess at some level, you're all elected officials. Excuse me. Like Mark, I have a bit of a rough throat going on here. I don't know why, but I think I'm addicted to lilies, but that's a different podcast.
Lilies.
So
look like a lily guy.
A little bit, don't I?
Yeah, you do.
Kind of, walk around. But anyway, we're getting off track. You're all elected officials who need to take a crack at this, get to right size this, right? This isn't easy work. This isn't a bunch of commissioners with an agenda or whatever you want to say. I mean, it's pretty clear that the state is telling counties and then cities, municipalities really, you will get this in a box. It's a different way for the governor to sort of control spending.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He's basically saying not basically, he is flat out saying, if I'm going to come in here and use state funds to buy down property taxes, which they're planning on doing to the tune of, the last number I heard was, I think, 1,600. They're playing a little bit of politics with it. It'll wind up being in that range. It ain't coming.
1,600 mills?
$1,600 per household.
Oh, wow.
That's what it'll wind up being roughly. But that's not coming at no cost. So you guys are going to control, you're not backfilling. You're not going to, max out your mills. Like for us, that'd be 60. You're not going to max out your mills and then also be able to say, well, your tax bill's lower because the state came in. No. We're all going to play on this field.
Yeah. And
I don't blame him. As a matter of fact, I support it. It's making my job and my life extremely stressful and frustrating.
Sure.
And I'm having to use my calculator a lot more often than I'd like. But at the end of the day, this is what's necessary. And I think the people in the state of North Dakota deserve some relief.
Yeah. Well, when does all of this when do you have to be through the process? What's the drop
August.
dead? August.
Yeah.
So you'll know likely fairly well ahead, and there'll be some politicking and some give a little here, take a little more there, give a little here, take a little more there type stuff. I'm sure that will go on. Lead you right up to August and the day that you gotta.
We started way early this year.
Sure.
Usually we were like in the years past, we weren't even having budget talks yet.
Right.
And we've already had 2, maybe 3 meetings that we talked budget. And I mean, that's one thing I'll give Terry Bierke is he is not one to mince words.
Oh, no, he's pretty direct.
Yeah, he's if it's on his mind, he'll say it, and he'll say it extremely loud. And message received from the department heads. Many of them are coming back with some great ideas. Honestly, this dropping the Bierke bowling ball in the swimming pool might have been just what this county needed to get back on track. Because I couldn't move the needle at all when I could only have myself and potentially on some stuff Commissioner Hagan. Because the previously I just didn't have support on any reduction anywhere.
The thing that I think my observation, Terry learned from his time on the council, is that he would have all these proposed cuts, but he would do it after the horse was way out of the barn. Mm-hmm. What he's learned now, I think, is that he needs to get in front of it and not behind it, and he has some real opportunity here to make traction. And it's also nice too when you look around, you got some people that are actually willing to hear what you have to say. And that's not to take a slight at other council members that served with Terry at the city all those years. I think their frustration was not that Terry didn't have good ideas. It's just, so here we are the night of, all the negotiating is done, all the things are over with, and now you're going to propose millions of dollars in cuts.
Mm-hmm.
And they would get frustrated because that would have been great, 3 months ago when we were talking about that. But he learned the lesson, and now the county, and by proxy then, the taxpayer should benefit from all of this.
That's a good take. I hadn't ever actually thought of it that way, but that's a good take because, yeah, he probably did. Because I do remember watching his the budget meetings that they would have at the city council under his tenure were long.
Right. Yes, very long. Very. I mean, I remember watching as a talk show host at the time lots of 4 and 5 hour meetings, and he would just take it through the list, punch list by punch list by punch list.
Yeah, and I could see how that could get frustrating for other members too. But you're probably dead on, I would say.
Well, and I remember Hal Gershman, Doug Christensen, and later Dana Sandy all like, Terry, this is great, but where was it 6 to 8 weeks ago? I mean, we can't. You want us to? I mean, we have to pass a budget tonight, or we have to get to some sort of resolution, and now you're bringing all this to the surface, and it appears that he's
way learned. Ahead of it right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure he thought, okay, well, you want me to be ahead of it? I'll be ahead of it. It also helps that he's retired now.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't then. He was still, slugging mail 6 days a week then. So it was a lot tougher, I suppose, for him. But now we all benefit a little bit. One of the few times that I've been off the air 3 years, March, that I wish I had a talk show. So I know Brett Burkholder a little bit. I had the opportunity to referee basketball with him. And so as I was preparing for this today, I thought, I'm going to try to read most everything I can find on it. And really the only thing that was made available. Now, again, it's a personnel thing and it gets weird. And there's a taking the correction center and folding it under the sheriff. We did all that. So all that stuff. But here's a question I have for you. Kind of maybe take that if you could park it over here for just a second. So I was reading about the Back the Blue grant. And I was like, okay, so really, how does a guy get to be in a supervisory position where he's got to handle a grant and he screws it up to the point where it costs him his job? Now, my spidey senses immediately told me, normally something like this, it's a thing on top of a thing on top of a thing. I don't know that, but just reading through this, I was like, okay, I know you, I know Bierke, I don't know Kimberly quite as well, but I know of her. If we saw each other at big box store, we'd say yo. So we're at least on that name basis. So I know the people that are involved. Some of you better than others, but I'm like, okay, these are very smart, reasonable people. So I thought, okay, so Back the Blue. Okay, so he misused the grant. Okay, and he thinks enough to reach out to the AG, his office anyway, to say, hey, I got this grant. I want to make sure I'm using it right. So under the umbrella of employee incentives and retention, he wanted to enhance the break room, which I've heard gossip that it was more or less a vending machine. It was, and maybe some TVs, I think is kind of what the long and the short of it was. So I thought, okay, would I have done that? Probably not. Would you have done that? Probably not. So then I come to find out, and again, obviously you'll get a chance to correct all this in a minute. $38,000 of it, before everybody kind of went, okay, hold on. Just stop. So the question I have, was that the sole reason that Mr. Burkholder was dismissed?
So I have to be a little careful here because I've been told there's a potential dispute coming our way.
Sure.
So I'm going to tread a little lightly. So the Back the Blue grant, the verbiage on it is crystal clear. And Mr. Burkholder was given guidance from the AG's office in writing. And apparently he went through with those purchases anyways, the soda machine, and there was other items, a basketball hoop, I think, and like pizza, stuff like that. Just kind of quality of life stuff for the staff.
Hey guys, pizza on me tonight. Woohoo.
Which I don't like. In practice, I think quality of life for the staff is incredibly important. How about put it in your budget and do it normal?
Sure.
Do it like legally. Putting Grand Forks County under the magnifying glass of the legislature as being the one county out of, like, I think it was 104 or 107 of those grants that were given out that misappropriated is a bigger deal than it probably sounds like. Believe me, I got a couple love letters about it. I don't know if he's married, but if he is, I know what his wife's handwriting looks like. and so I mean, yeah, there was that. There was also the fact that and ultimately he was dismissed by the sheriff.
Sure.
Once we turned over control of the jail to the sheriff, it in fact became his baby. Now, we did attempt to terminate after the misappropriation of funds, but the state's attorney stepped in and said, no, you've turned over the jail to the sheriff. It is now the sheriff's determination on who works underneath him. And so I think maybe a week later, something like that, it ultimately took place. There are other things that have come to light. I guess some of this has been talked about at an open meeting, so I'm probably okay. But like some bills that were coming in from our food service vendor that, like, for instance, I want to say that there was one of them, it was an individual pod that held, I think, 70 or 72 inmates. And we were charging a single day for 900 and some breakfasts, okay, for 70 some people.
Wow.
And this wasn't like an email bill that where you just hit like approve or deny. This was a paper copy that required a signature. And so the thing, and there was several of them from that same food vendor where it was just clear that they weren't being looked at.
Yeah.
And so I think that's about all I dare say, because there could be a bit of a
there could be a lawsuit coming,
a snafu in court. I know he's not interested in staying terminated. I've heard that. I've been forwarded an email, and so there's going to be a dispute. And I don't want to cause any problems for Mr. Burkholder or the county by saying too much. If that makes sense.
And I do. I appreciate that. I respect that. Obviously, I mean, I'm not gonna try to paint you into a corner or do anything like that. I always think that, you know, in North Dakota in particular, I mean, you got to have a pretty solid reason for firing somebody, but it doesn't have to be so egregious. I mean, people think I can fire you for the color of socks that you have on. That's not exactly right. In my other duties around here, I've had to learn a few things about that. You do have to have some reason for doing what you do. And so for him, it's unfortunate, and my words and nobody else's, it just seems so damn stupid. Like, how can you not? You reach out for guidance, you get guidance, and then you do it anyway. To me, that's the part. I'm not asking necessarily to comment, Mark. It's just, to me, that was a part that stuck out to me. So then I thought, there are counties, there are commissions, and maybe in a different time when the finances look a little differently, that's a thing too, that you make a $38,000 mistake, and it sounds like a big mistake in it, but in a budget of 3, 4, 5, 8, 10, 12, 20, 50 million, you can say, okay, don't do that again. We're going to take care of it this time, but if you do it again, we're going to write you up. We're going to make it uncomfortable for you. We're going to put it in a file. You're going to have to go through some headlines and do some things, but you're going to keep your job. But if you do it again, you're done. And that's not what happened here. So that's why I asked the question the way I did was, there must have been some other things. Again, not asking you to comment. I don't want to get you or anybody else in trouble. I'm just saying that, again, and I know Brett a little bit. I know Brett a little bit, and we officiated some basketball games together. Solid guy, good human.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody disputes that. I don't think you get to be administrator out of jail if you're a kind of a dummy. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, I agree with all that. It is unfortunate. I think it's easy to think of a $38,000 mistake as a $38,000 mistake in a $50 million budget, right? But the reality of it is, this was a misappropriation of grant funds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's different than, like, if you say he had a budget for XYZ and spent it on ABC instead, and then comes to us and say, you know what, I should have spent it on XYZ, but I spent it on ABC. Can I move a few things around? These are grant dollars, and we rely so heavily on grant dollars from the state. I mean, our roads and bridges are largely funded through that, what do they call it, the pocket gopher or something like that? Prairie dog. That's Prairie dog funding.
Pocket gopher.
Whatever. You can edit that out too, right? But
we could, but we're not going to.
Yeah, it's all very, very similar animals. But I don't want, nobody can afford to have the state spying over our shoulders when we receive a grant. We need to be trusted that we will appropriate those funds the way they need to be appropriated.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lawyer someplace, if this is where this goes with Mr. Burkholder, that can explain retention, gift cards. I mean, they'll figure out a way to say, well, this is what these, I mean, if it talks about employee retention, hey, if I give employee A gift card on occasion, he's told me privately that, yeah, the pay's not what it should be and the benefits are good but not great. But man, that $50 you give me to my favorite restaurant every once in a while, I mean, kind of kept me around longer. You'll find a lawyer that will do that.
Sure, yeah. I mean, you can get sued for anything.
Of
right?
course.
I mean, your watch is much better looking than mine. I may sue you for having a better watch after this podcast is completed.
Put that away.
Yeah. Cover that up, would you?
That's not good.
Yeah.
By the way, the consolidation of the sheriff's office and the corrections center, Sheriff Schneider would like to hire, and I think the commission is favorable to hiring something called a jail captain.
Yeah, I don't know that the actual job name has been completed yet.
We do a little better in jail captain.
I think we can do a little better. Hey, by the way, did you hear my April Fool's Day motion?
No.
Speaking of the jail, so I thought that we had to rename it to the Grand Forks County Jail based on Century Code, but Haley Wamstead called me and said, I don't need to because I misread it. She read it correctly. She said that's unnecessary and it's just going to make a headache for headings and whatnot. I said, oh, okay, cool. So I go, I'll just amend the motion at the next meeting. She goes, okay, great. Well, the next meeting fell on April 1st, so I'm like, well, I got to screw with them. Right. So I made the motion to rename it Bierke's Big Ass Building of Bad Guys.
I bet that got some people to go,
I had to keep it light, right?
oh, what happened? Is he serious about this? Oh, we didn't know about this. Yeah.
Now, you know what? I got completely off track and forgot your question.
Jail captain.
Oh,
Sheriff Schneider would like one.
So he'll need to probably take somebody that's already there and give them a new title, or maybe somebody that's with the sheriff's department that wants a change of pace, give them a new title. It won't be like we're hiring necessarily a new.
Oh, so it wouldn't be like a new job.
No, I don't think so.
Just a reorg of somebody that's already there.
Yeah, that's my impression. We don't have the money to open up a new position like that that's got that kind of financial ramifications.
Yeah, so there'd be a job description and all that, but likely somebody from within that's already there.
Yeah, right now the interim is Jody Hildy. She's been there an awful long time. I hear through the grapevine she's doing a great job under her new leadership. I'm also hearing great things about the, I guess not the report. That's not the word I'm looking for. I had a kind of a senior moment here. The culture out there under new leadership and guidance has changed. And, and sometimes people do just need a fresh start. And
sometimes just a fresh, like a fresh energy.
Yeah.
I think the kids call it a different vibe.
Yeah.
A different, somebody might smile once in a while.
Yeah. I've
tell
been
you,
divorced and remarried, Sometimes you just need
a different vibe.
Yeah. Fresh set of downs.
Yeah. That's what and look at you now.
Yeah. First and 10, baby. Right on the goal line.
He loves you, Jennifer, just so you know. There is no doubt.
This is fun. We should do this again sometime.
Well, absolutely. We're going to do this again.
Can I swear on this?
I think so. I haven't been real. I think the occasional shit.
Okay.
I don't know that we should get into big F bombs. Not that we're really big F bomb guys. I mean, we're talking about things that are. But
if we start talking about golf, one might slip.
Well, one might slip. Okay. Which, by the way, that season is finally here again.
Oh, baby!
Yeah, here we go.
You swung them yet?
No. My first tee time is Saturday. And then I'm thinking again on Sunday. I've got new clubs this year. I've been to.
What'd you get?
I got I-530 pings.
Oh,
yeah. I mean they're.
I've never used them before, but I
nice.
hear good things. I'm still sticking with my Paradigms that I got 2 years ago. And I love those things.
And I got a lab putter.
A what?
A lab putter, and it. The thing with the lab putter is. You have to learn how to use it, which took me about 3 months. How come I can't get this thing to work right? And then I did a little YouTubing, and I was like, oh. So it's angled in a way where, again, you got to learn how to use it. But once you learn how to use it, your putt will always start on the line that you put it on, which sounds really stupid because, well, duh. But why guys like you and me miss as many putts as we do,
speak for yourself,
is because we don't start it we think we're starting it on the line, and then something happens in the backswing or something happens in the follow through. With this putter, it forever keeps it square to the ball. So when you hit it, and if I hit it that way, it goes that way. Again, you gotta learn how to use it. I'm making it sound like rocket science. It's not. It just takes, for guys that have putted their whole lives like we have, and you've used blade putters and mallets and all kinds of different putters. This is just a different. Will it make any difference? I don't know. I sure did play with it a lot in my office this winter. So I mean, I'm hoping it has. If I could just make a few putts, it's the old story, right?
I might want to look at that. Is it still here?
No, it's in my.
Oh, okay.
It's at my house.
I've never heard of this before. And
yeah,
and if I've learned one thing about golf, is purchasing a new trinket always helps.
Oh, you kidding me? And I was, of course, it's the old story, right? So I took my old clubs in Golf Center. Of course, great, love Nate.
Love
Bertram, yeah. Oh yeah, love those guys. And I go over there, and of course I've made the decision to buy new clubs. So they take my old clubs, and they going to give me some credit against my new clubs. Well, I don't need two sets of clubs. I just create a boneyard like the rest of us have, right? And so Brian says, "Well, I'll just take these from you," and he gave me $450 for the clubs, right? So my wife has an alert on her card, right? So she sees the amount go through for the clubs.
Credit.
Well, right. So she sees the clubs go through. She doesn't know anything about any credit, right? So she sees the amount go through for the clubs and whatever. She was expecting that because we had talked about it, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So then all of a sudden, here comes a credit for $450 for a new putter. So she was like, what's going on? Well, guess how much they gave me for my clubs, Mark? $450. They're good salesmen over there at the golf center. So Brian and Nate, of course, he could sell ice to an Eskimo. That guy. He's like, look, you're pointing right there. I'd missed like 9 putts in a row with this lab putter, but that's where you were aiming. We got to fix your aim. Once you fix your aim, it's going to be great. I was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's easy.
Yeah, if I knew how to do this, Nate, I wouldn't be standing here on a cold February day trying to figure this out.
I'd be playing extra holes with Rory at the Masters.
Yeah, he and I would be another 9. Yeah, but it was no, it's good. I'm excited. It keeps me interested, keeps me going. So one more thing.
Yeah.
Today, in fact, we're recording this on today's Wednesday. Mm-hmm. The casino went down.
Failed today. Yep.
Failed today. You casino guy, not a casino guy, kind of lost track of where.
I mean, not really. I like to go to Las Vegas, but I'm not a big gaming guy. I like to bet on sports, but I do that on my phone.
Sure. Like every other human.
Yeah. Well, if you listen to the North Dakota legislature's testimony today, you would think that was unable to be done. I literally won a pile on the Wild last night. I
was a big PokerStars guy. Big. I mean, I love playing PokerStars. And then money laundering came into that deal, and Antigua and all kinds of other things. And so that whole thing fell apart. But as these states were starting to add legalized gambling, online gambling, I thought, when are we going to get like PokerStars, like be able to do that in North Dakota again? And it's just never come back. I don't know how.
You can. You just need a VPN.
Well, and again, there's ways.
It's about $5 a month.
Yeah, and
trust me, I know.
I always wonder about this stuff because sometimes I think our state falls behind.
Oh, for sure.
And it makes us feel like it's 1954 around here. If you don't want a sports bet, Mark will likely sports bet tonight. I won't. I don't have to. I have the same opportunity he does. I have a cell phone. I have an internet connection. I could do it. But Mark's not going to harm anybody but himself by way of his checkbook will either get bigger or smaller. But it's his business. So sometimes I wonder, why do we care? I see the other side of it, again, back to a casino. Guys that can't afford it spend way too much money, that kind of thing. I mean, there is an addiction aspect to it that I know that in the past, other casino efforts have gone on here, haven't been well received, in particular by the nonprofit gaming community. Have often said, we can't do this, you're going to absolutely kill us. Yeah, well, the casinos have always said that's not going to be true.
That to me falls a little bit shy of accurate because they're ever since North Dakota brought in the pull tab things, their profits are up crazy. I forget the numbers, like some preposterous amount.
And that's like a slot machine.
It looks like the same thing to me.
Does.
I don't play them, but you asked about the casino. Yeah, I was in favor of it. You want to know why? Because I got elected to set policy and create a budget for a county that's in real trouble. And when I see an additional $600,000+ annually on day one, yeah, I'm gonna support it because that'll really help us with our budget. It might save people their jobs in the long run.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I supported it. I didn't support it as somebody that wants to go there all the time. I'd go check it out or whatever.
Well, sure, go to a show there. Or whatever,
Seinfeld or Chappelle came to do a show. Yeah, I'd go.
Yeah.
But I'm not Mr. Casino guy. But I don't think it hurts anything. I'm not buying the human trafficking and they're not gonna have babies in diapers next to the interstate sitting on the grass. Like I just think that's nonsense.
Yeah. Well, and I would also think that we're in a community where if that stuff was happening,
We take care of it.
We would take care of it. The casino would be short-lived if that, or something would happen to the person that did that.
And
I don't know. You can always lay all that at the feet of the casino either.
And you don't build a $300 to $400 million facility to have it run into the ground. You just don't. There's a reason why the companies looking at running it are really unknown commodities like Harrah's and MGM Grand.
They're very familiar with this stuff. I tell you what, though, the tribe took a step in getting closer, and they still have the land, and they're not going to give that up. And I'm guessing they'll be back
next session or the following session. It'll ultimately go through. I would assume. I just think that the good probably outweighs the bad. I mean, if you do have a gambling issue, I guess, here's my PSA for the day. My recommendation would be not to go. I guess. I mean, to me, it should be as simple as that. I mean, if you're addicted to heroin, I would recommend you don't put that in your arm.
I mean, I got a problem with booze, so I stay away from it. I don't drink it.
There you go. I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, I'm not real big, and this is where probably Commissioner Bierke and I differ. I'm not real big on dictating morality. Maybe that's, the little libertarian in me. But I don't like telling a grown-ass man that you can't do with your money what you please if it isn't harming other folks.
Sure.
I don't want you to spend your money on child trafficking because that harms other folks. But if you want to throw $1,000 on the Timberwolves, why the hell would I care?
Yeah.
If you've got the ground and you think they're going to take the Lakers, I think they play today or tomorrow, then bet it. I don't care. Bet it.
Yeah.
And if we can capture some of those people that are coming from Winnipeg, if we ever can fix the relationship with Canada and North Dakota and capture some of those folks and maybe even people from Minneapolis, because what they proposed here, I don't know if you ever saw the renderings. Oh my heavens.
Yeah.
It is a palace.
Yep.
I mean, actually, ironically, Caesar's Palace is the one that wound up winning the agreement to operate it. And this thing was going to be really cool. It's so, for all the people that are against it, I understand why.
Sure.
You laid it out really succinctly. There's obviously negatives to anything, especially if it has to do with the social type of things. But I guess to me, as a county commissioner in a struggling county, I wanted the money.
I was listening to my favorite radio station today, and Agrista is going to come to our community, our county, our area, and they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars. And now we're concerned that, and these are legitimate text messages from, I presume, legitimate human beings, that they're concerned that Belgium is going to, be spying on us. A known ally,
Belgium
of the United States, who's in NATO and all the other things, is going to be, So we need, and it's a little bit about this community. It's a little bit about discounted grocery store, good growth. Corn milling plant, bad growth. We have a little bit of that kind of in our DNA where a lot of people just like it the way it is here.
Well, let me tell you something. I could grab 15 of my closest friends, use only my personal firearms, and easily take over Belgium. They can spy all they want. I don't care.
But that's a kind of ridiculousness, though, that sometimes you get, I don't know what you're afraid of. I mean, potato farmers everywhere are rejoicing. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
Lots of jobs, high paying jobs, developments, all the things that you hope for in it. And it just, if you're Mayo Boczynski, at some point you just run your head against the wall and you just say, I mean, I'm trying to get all this growth to come to our community, and every time I turn around, it seems like somebody wants to fight me on it. I understand the concern, but it's been spelled out to you about as succinctly as it can be at this point. It's a good thing for Grand Forks, and it's a good thing for North Dakota. Just let the good thing happen. It's okay.
I don't get that sentiment. I shouldn't say I don't get it, because I am hearing it. I see it in my email inbox, but it doesn't ring true to me. Because, well, I guess if you just want us to not grow, I suppose that's a valid opinion, but that isn't who you've elected as a mayor.
Right.
You haven't elected somebody as a mayor that's interested in a stagnant, dying town. You just haven't. You've elected somebody that wants to bring growth, bring opportunity, wants to make it so that people want to live here. I mean, he's one of my best buddies. I hunt with him. And by the way, that bastard got an elk tag and I didn't get drawn this year.
Whoa. Now what?
Yeah.
You got to go and push?
Well, I suppose that's what I'll be doing, or sitting with my binoculars. But yeah, 3 years in a row he's gotten one. You know how many years it's been since I got one? 4.
I mean, at least you're not bitter about it.
No, not at all. No, I've never been so annoyed about getting a check for $1,200 from the state of Montana.
Well, like you said,
Like, just cash it and give me the damn tag.
you'll get your binoculars and you'll go be a good buddy, and he'll shoot something for his wall, and you'll feel sad.
You know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. We do own land there now too.
I see. I think I know where this is headed.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely buy a wolf tag so I can carry a gun.
Yeah. Wolves, man.
They're out there.
Mark, thank you for the time.
Hey,
I appreciate it.
at least we didn't get off topic at all.
No. Towards the end a little, but we did pretty good. We stayed right where we're supposed to be.
That's what I like about podcasting, though, because I'm kind of one of those guys where if I see something shiny, I chase after it like a raccoon would do.
Right.
And so in the podcast format allows for the shiny metal chasing.
It does. Leighton Media does podcasting now. If you're interested, or if you're curious about how to start one, or if you need a studio, you can't buy any of this equipment on Amazon. We do it all for you. You just have to show up with the content, and our boy Jacob will move it to all the places, and he'll start you a YouTube channel, and he'll do all that stuff. That's 775-4611. And again, my guest, Mark Rustad, a county commissioner for the great for the great county of Grand Forks County, which, by the way, I think is still about 80% of Grand Forks. Is Grand Forks County.
Yeah, Grand Forks is like closer to 90%.
Oh, 90%, yeah.
Like 88%, I think is the last number I saw. But thanks for having me.
Dude, you'll be back.
Number 3, I feel honored.
Yeah, well, and we're going to be, pretty soon we'll be golfing.
And I had to follow Chaves. That's a tough follow.
Yeah, Chaves was, I saw him today at a Lair Center Commission meeting, and he was happy with it. He thought it went well.
I'm going to be watching the numbers online. If I beat Chaves next time I see him, I'm going to rub it in.
Well, you should. You should.
I barely know him. He's going to go, who the hell are you?
Why is this guy?
Yeah, this is a douchebag.
Then he'll call me and he'll go, do you know a Mark? I do. So, Mark, thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too, sir.